Hello buddy, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on Dock Karaz, playing as the Force of the Greenskins against, well, once again, Force of the Empire. Been running into a lot of Empire players lately, it's interesting. But for this build here, I wanted to try a little bit of Boartonia, Pigtonia, or good old Orc Cav play. And of course take advantage of the Black Orc Big Boss and all the benefits he provides to that sort of style. Now, unfortunately with this composition here, I was a little slow on getting the army going, so I am actually a couple hundred points short. I could have actually crammed a few more units in here, but unfortunately didn't manage to do so, and so we are going to be going down in a little bit down on the points. I believe a goblin or two short, which is a little sad, but what can you do? Now for my lord, I'm going to be rocking Azag the Slaughter. I think he's a pretty solid pick for his Empire, just because he's safe. It's very hard to snipe Azag, and at the same time you can get good value out of Azag. You might think Warthag or a Night Goblin or a Goblin Great Shaman can be a good, or especially Goblin Great Shaman on a Wolf could be a good cheap budget choice, but you get very, very easily sniped by enemy magic missiles in particular, and so it's something you want to be wary of. Azag, of course, with the Wyvern does get good missile resist. He's got good armor, or passable armor, which makes him rather beefy against enemy magic missile sniping. Now, he does have Foe Seeker as well here. We've got Doom and Darkness, of course, trying to leadership bomb the Empire a little bit. Figured it could be fun. We've got Spirit Leech to whittle down single targets, and Artillery and Cav and that sort of thing. Gotta get on with it for the extra leadership if we happen to get into combat, but none of his AoE buffs, because I'm not really expecting Azag to be able to stick around in a fight for very long. I'm just kind of hoping to kite around and spam magic and be an opportunist. And we do have life leeching for the extra ones of magic. Besides that, he's a decent fighter on Skull Muncha, but nothing to write home about. Front line is two units of goblins, as well as 2 Savage Orc Big Guns. I think it's a solid mix. With once WoW goes off, Savage Orc Big Guns will basically mulch any Empire State troops they run into, including Great Swords. Without it, they'll mulch any lower end Empire State troops. And they do have very good speed, so once the front line is breached, these guys can overwhelm your opponent. Plus that anti-large bonus, great against Cav. They're just a good all-around unit. I really do enjoy Savage Orc Big Guns. Like them a lot better than normal Big Guns, in fact, just because they're a little bit nippier and hit a little bit harder. We do have some units of Goblin Wolf Ride Archers out here on the flank, just screening, and mostly there to chase off Outriders and wannabe Pistolier harass. Some units of Orc Boar with Big Guns are on this flank. These guys, of course, did get a big buff to armor in the last few patches, which makes them trade really well with the vast majority of Empire Heavy Cav. Really excellent unit for how cheap they are, though, of course, not ideal against infantry with those low combat stats. And on the other flank is our real strike force here. 2 Orc Boar by Big Guns, one of which is the Broken Tusk Mob, the Regiment of Renown, reinforced by a Black Orc Big Boss, who, of course, does have Brass Cleaver, granting that extra 9 melee attack, as well as the Rabble Rouse. So these guys are all immune to psychology. If there's any terror play, it will not work on these guys. We also do have Get Back here to keep them in the fight, and Heroic Killing Blow, which soups that Black Orc Big Boss up to some pretty insane heights. An extra 50% damage, you're looking at close to 200 extra damage out on this guy. Nearly 600 weapon strength, even if only for a few seconds, is pretty nifty. Finally, Moonhowler's back here to add a little bit of fear and a little bit of backline harass. A nice little cheap support unit. Now, for my opponent, he has gone with a bit of a net Lord Sniping build, and yeah, it could be tough, could be annoying. We've got Marcos Wolfhart back here. He is coming in on foot, of course. There's no other way to bring Marcus, so not even worth mentioning there. And he, of course, does have Hunter Snare, as well as Focused Shot. Surprisingly not bringing in Amber Bow, though that is a bit of a buggy ability sometimes, so I can kind of understand why you wouldn't want to bring it. He's got good range. He, of course, does have good AP damage. Anti-large, big threat to Azag. Alongside him, we do have a Light Wizard who's only brought net of a Mintox, so super budget option here. I think it's always nice to bring at least Phos Protection, just because it's a cheap support spell, but this guy is certainly going to be a pain in the rear for how cheap he is. Warrior Priest, backing up some Royal Altar of Griffites, is in the back here. The Warrior Priest, of course, quite the presence. Not a great combat character, but he does have Shield of Faith as well as Soulfire. Surprisingly, no Hammer of Sigmar, and I think this is a big mistake. You always want that extra melee attack buff. It's always nifty in my opinion. It's one of those spells you always want to bring. If I was going to cut anything, it's Benediction. But that extra leadership matters on Empire Cap, because Empire Cap does not have very good leadership for how expensive it is. Besides that, front line is a dirt cheap. We do have a whole bunch of Spearmen with Shields, just providing a bit of a zoning line. There are some Huntsmen who are chipping away at my cavalry. Bit of a nuisance, these guys. These guys can, obviously with the stock and the anti-large, they will just destroy Goblin Wolf Ride Archers, but also a threat to Orc Boar with Big Guns and Azag if my opponent gets the shot. Hammer of Witches already shooting at Azag. I did try to hit it with a Spirit Leech, but RNG isn't on my side, so it's actually not really going to do anything here. It's not going to kill a model. And then we do have some cavalry, in addition to the relative group fights, 2 Knights of Blazing Sun out on the flanks, providing their support. And some halberds. Interesting choice. Not a huge fan of halberds in really any matchup. I think they're a terrible unit for... I shouldn't say terrible unit. I think they're a unit that has no real niche in the Empire roster. But they are here. And they are going to be positioned to support if the Spearman line gets breached, which it probably will with Savage Rock Big Guns bearing down. Now, Huntsmen are going to rain death and destruction on these bad boys, and of course these guys do not have the best tankiness against missiles with only 0 armor and a little bit of physical resist. They will certainly suffer, but they are closing the gap here, getting a little whittled down, but now the fire is shifting over to Azag, and he's juking back and forth like a madman, trying to avoid the Hammer Witches and the Huntsmen. But unfortunately, he's already taken quite a bit of damage, and of course, every little bit he takes is bad. And a huge misplay here on my part, actually getting hit by the Hunter Snare. So my opponent here gets a very nice setup on Azag, and I'm still not in position. One of the big misplays I tend to make as a player is that I tend to get a little greedy with my Lord, my front line, get overexcited, get overextended, and then get screwed like this. So Azag is going to get focused out here. I popped Foe Seeker right as I went down, so huge misplay there. But a Spirit Leech will at least drain the Hammer Witches of 1 gun, which should soften the blow against Azag. In the meantime, the cavalry is swinging around the flanks. We can see the Wolf Riders over there moving in. And over here, we are going to see the Goblins getting charged by the Knights of the Blazing Sun. So just straight up not having a good time. Gobos will not endure very long here. But in the meantime, Savage Orcs doing some good work. We'll mulch through these Spearmen pretty quickly. My opponent is not paying attention, and in come the Boars. Those pigs are angry. Those wild hogs riding down the Knights of the Blazing Sun, robbing them of their biggest stat, which is charge bonus. And because my opponent got no value out of his charge bonus, he is going to get just shredded. Wa is going down, and this is a disaster in the making for this Cav contingent. Wound Howlers also getting in here, Wa buffing them up. Now, Netta Mintok does deny them, fully compromising the Hammer Witches, and keep in mind, it does have physical resist, so it does endure relatively well against these guys. But despite the fact that Azag was forced back completely, we are actually getting a little bit of a win here. Getting a beautiful surround on these Knights of the Blazing Sun, able to eradicate this very elite unit pretty quickly, and the big guns are just mulching through these spears as my opponent's halberds are being drawn away from the main line and forced to try to help back here. Now, Soulfire is going down. That is going to mulch the poor Moon Howlers. They just do not like that Holy Rain at all, and they are going to rout very quickly. I was trying desperately to force them onto the Hammer Witches and make it rout, but it just did not happen. Halberds now pushing in on the Boarboy Big Guns, and this is not where we want to be in life. We are going to be pulling back, but fortunately for me, my opponent here has lost the front line at this point, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun have been run off, which means that now the halberds can be interdicted by the Savage Orc Big Guns, who are going to get a little charge here. And halberdiers do not like Savage Orc Big Guns if they are not braced to soak up the charge bonus, and they are going to start bleeding pretty heavily. They've only got 30 armor. It's not great. Savage Orc Big Guns hit 46 weapon strength. They are no joke, and they're going to do quite a bit of hurt. In the meantime, Azag here just looking for an opening, looking for someone to snack on, because of course nets have been used. Not really able to find openings, so I'm just kind of hovering around looking for that chance, but I don't want to get gunned down by Huntsmen. But over here, we are going to see the Royaltorf Gryphites punished heavily. Spirit Leech did go down on them earlier. Of course, the Blackrock Big Boss is popping heroic killing blow, so he is hitting like an absolute truck. And although the Hunter Snare will save the Gryphites for now, allowing them to extricate themselves and giving these Knights of the Blazing Sun the opportunity to charge, it's a little late. Now Wa is going down again. All this cavalry, even though getting a pincer here, is not going to be able to force a terror out because the Blackrock Big Boss is in there. And of course, the Prokotus mobs are absolute champs. They got 100 armor. They will not waver in the face of some pansy Yumis on horses. And them fancy lances are going to be going out like a candle in the wind here as it's just getting torn apart by those very angry big guns. And even Royal Dove Gryphites not able to do the job here with no healing support and only one Warrior Priest to buff them, plus of course no Hammer of Sigmar. These guys are going to be forced back and routed away. Now here in the pits, it's a little bit different. We are able to compromise the Huntsmen. We are able to overrun them. Orc Boarboy Big Guns doing quite a number on my opponent there, though unfortunately this unit there routed off. Azag still being very heavily focused. But this fight definitely very pitched, definitely going back and forth. Now the Hammer Witches will go offline at some point, and most likely these Boar Boys will lose this fight actually because they have been charged. There is Wolfheart in there. There is some infantry in there, or I should say the crews really, but they can actually interrupt attacks and all that sort of thing just because they're there. It's an extra presence to deal with. And so the Orc Boar Baby Guns probably not going to be able to win this one, but I'm not sure it matters as the Warrior Priest here being pressured very heavily. The Blackrock Big Boss, of course, a absolute monster to fight against, just has far better stats than a simple Warrior Priest, who's only got 45-30 compared to the 55-55 baseline of Black Orc Big Boss. So he's just getting chunked. Well, here in the back line, Azag looking for that opening, looking to pick off some Demigryph Knights. This is a fight he can definitely take. And Savage Orc Big Gun still very much in the fight, still very much causing trouble. And we are able to compromise really the majority of my opponent's line at this point. Now, Huntsmen are coming back. They are, of course, still a threat. With Anti-Large, they will do good damage to Broken Tusk. Soulfire doing good damage to the Boar Boys as well. But fortunately, with the Black Orc Big Boss in there, with her Unkilling Blow and all that, he is going to be keeping these boys in the fight far longer than they normally would. Savage Orcs do rout off the Light Wizard, who is running for dear life here. His long robes flapping in the wind. And I was hell-bent on killing this guy. I did not want this Light Wizard coming back at all. So we're going to shatter him completely and send that Pansy Git back to the Shadow Realm. And actually, he's going to get run down. So collapsing there in a heap. And at this point, there's no magic left for my opponent. We are actually able to get the Wolf Riders as well as some big guns on the Huntsman. So that's going to remove the missile contingent from play. Now the Black Orc Big Boss here still fighting tooth and nail, though he does get netted by Hunter Snare. And, of course, Wolfheart can still shoot him down here. At close range like this, Wolfheart will be chunking this Black Orc Big Boss. You can see about 300 damage there. I think one actually went in from the Warrior Priest. But definitely not a good time for the Black Orc Big Boss. But at least he is keeping the troops in the fight. Savage Orc Big Guns pouring on in. And there just isn't anything to stop them at this point. We still have the Broken Tusk Mob here in the distance, running down peripheral troops. And this pit fight, of course, is going to go the way of the Orc. The Warrior Priest running for dear life there. Sigmar cannot protect him against the Great Green Gods. Wolfheart there being a nuisance, but we are able to compromise him with a tide of Orc cavalry and Orc monstrosities. And it's not a good day for the Empire, as they are getting run down and eradicated. Now Wolfheart is over here. Had to zoom out a little bit to find him because he's just so isolated, but surrounded by big guns, surrounded by Wolf Rider archers actually, which is kind of funny. We're just going to keep him netted in place. He's not going to be able to escape. He is trying to fire in the melee, but the Hunts Marshal is going to be a goner fairly soon. He did try to kill off the Black Orc Big Boss, who is very low, and now he's trying to get a focus shot on Azag, but really too little too late, and a pure victory for the Green Tide. Now, I was pretty happy with how this build performed, despite the fact that we were actually short a few units. We could have actually crammed in a few more gobos here and there, which could have, I think, swung the battle a little more in my favor. Despite that, we managed to squeak out a win. Certainly some misplays with Azag, just getting him shot to death for no reason, being greedy with the Spirit Leeches. I really shouldn't have bothered. This was a very aggressive build, so trying to gamble my HP on Spirit Leeching the Hammer Witches early on was a waste, in my opinion. But by and large, the build performed pretty well. Nets were not enough to halt so many boars coming in from so many sides, and of course, some of them got massive value there. 2 chevrons. Tore apart that Empire Cav, tore apart the Demigryph Knights, and just got really, really good results. Same with the Savage Orc Big Guns. These guys are always, I feel they always perform well when you bring them into good matchups. They just rack up so many kills so easily. And then once you breach that front line, they can just push on, go to the next, and go to chase down units like Huntsmen and Crossbows and that sort of thing. So, really fun stuff there. For my opponent, I think my main critique would be not bringing the Hammer of Sigmar on the Warrior Priest. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I think that some of these spears, he bought chevrons on him, so you could probably chip off all those chevrons and get a Hammer of Sigmar on this guy, and it's way more valuable. Also, not the hugest fan of Huntsmen. They're not bad, but I think you'd be better off served with guns or really Outriders, probably. Probably a safer choice there. And Outriders would do you a better job against Orc Boar Boy Big Guns in particular. Otherwise, I don't think it's a very bad build. If you're going for a static and more defensive approach, I think this isn't a bad approach at all. I just would really, my main critique is the abilities. Get Hammer of Sigmar, get Foss Protection on the Light Wizard, just so you have some secondary ability. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, anything super good, but you could like cut Benediction on the Warrior Priest, because Orcs aren't the greatest with leadership bombing. You could cut, cut the chevrons, cut Benediction, get Hammer of Sigmar, get the Foss Protection on the Light Wizard, just so you have a backup spell that can help you. Because in that Cav fight, for example, if my opponent had Foss Protection, that could have actually been a massive boon. That could have helped those Demigryph Knights potentially swing that fight entirely. Because if you can get rid of those Orc Boar Boy Big Guns, then at that point, the Black Orc Big Boss gets isolated. You can definitely take him to Pound Town with a unit like Demigryph Knights. So just my 2 cents there. Regardless, well played to Nefer Arkentum here. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. As usual, leave your thoughts, opinions, comments, and critiques down below. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.